And here he is, the man of the hour, the 16th coach in Oilers history. Dave, thank you so much for taking some time out and joining us here.
My pleasure. Nice to be here.
Now, Dave, you've had a whirlwind of the last couple of days, and I'm sure that being from Saskatchewan played a big part in your decision to coming to Edmonton. But a two-word question for you, Dave. Why Edmonton?
Well, I think it's an unbelievable opportunity. When I started talking to Kenny a little over a week ago, we talked about what he wants to do here, and the more I listened, the more I got excited about the opportunity. And being from Western Canada, I've been around pro hockey for about 35 years. I've never worked for a Canadian team or played for a Canadian team, so it's just an unbelievable opportunity, and I'm just grateful to be here.
Well, a first experience for you for working for a Canadian market, that being the Edmonton Oilers. Now, 3 weeks to the day, Ken Holland was hired as the team's general manager and president of hockey operations. Maybe take us through that hiring process and when Ken maybe first reached out to you and how that all played out.
Well, it was an interesting process because, in actual fact, I was working for Seattle and I had Ken on the mind to bring to Seattle. So there's a real funny dynamic that works there. But I kind of was monitoring what was going on in the GM world just through my other job in Seattle. Ken's name was front and center with that, and when he took this job here, we kind of crossed him off the list, and then we crossed paths about another week later. So interesting. Chain of events kind of thing, but I'm happy to be here working with him, and just really excited about the opportunity.
So the roles almost reversed there a little bit, didn't it?
A little bit, yeah. It was an interesting time, that's for sure.
Dave, maybe talk about your role with the Seattle franchise. They're slated to begin in 2021, 2022. Maybe take us through your role and what exactly did that entail?
It was a great opportunity. I'd taken a year away just to kind of catch my breath, and Tim Lewicki, who works for OBG, who's building the arena in Seattle, reached out to me and said, look, here's a project we're doing. We're going to hire his brother Todd, who's an unbelievable leader of NHL Seattle, come in and just give us a little hockey expertise. So went in, talked a lot about design of dressing rooms, a lot of things that as a coach or a player you don't get to do. It was very interesting stuff. So real grateful for my time in Seattle, but looking forward to this opportunity.
You talked about Ken Holland being on that list, and now you guys are here together in Edmonton. Maybe talk about your dynamic, maybe through the first few conversations you'd have with Ken, what you guys maybe expect and what you guys hope to instill here in the Oilers organization.
Well, I know one of the big things that he talked about was to bring some stability to the organization. It's been a little bit up and down here the last few years. He wants to make sure he brings some stability, and we talked about, my style of coaching coming in and structure, but I like to see players make plays. I want to see them play fast, and we kind of had that vision together of we want a very aggressive, fast team that can play with a real pace in today's game. So I'm excited about his vision of it, and as we talked more and more, it just felt like a good fit.
I read an article a few weeks ago, Dave, and it talked about how after a certain game in Dallas, Shane Doan talked about how there was a lineup of players just waiting for you just to maybe get a quick word in and see how the family's doing. How important is that relationship with your players, and how do you expect to maybe build on that in the Oilers organization now and for years to come?
I'm a big believer in relationships because it's a team. You have players on a team, you have coaches on the team, you have trainers on a team. Everybody should be working together, and you should care about each other. And I care about my players. I want them to care about winning. I want them to care about the crest on their jersey. And those things, when you work as a group together, players buy into that. They really feel like they're part of the process, and that's the way I want it to be. I want to make sure everybody feels like they're included. I feel like everybody's willing to give their best when they do that.
In your 14 years as an NHL head coach, my scouting report says that you also bring a certain defensive mindset. Is that something we can expect here in Edmonton?
It's funny because I look at what I have, and then you mold a team to think you can win with. And my first NHL job, when I was an assistant coach in LA and I got hired in Dallas, I was hired there because I was an offensive coach, because I ran the power play, and our power play had done real well in LA. And Doug Armstrong said, we like the offense, the creativity that you bring. So then I went to Arizona, and in Dallas I had some high-end teams that Modano and Arnott and Turgeon and players like that. I went to Arizona, we had strong defense, strong goaltending. The way we were going to win is to play real tight defense. And so when you go and you see what you have, you build a game plan that you think can be effective and ultimately make you win. That's what it's about. You got to try to win at all costs, and that's what we're trying to do here.
You talked about Mike Modano and Jason Arnott. Let's maybe talk about two players here in the Oilers organization, and Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. How much of a factor did they maybe play into your decision in coming to Edmonton, and how excited are you about the opportunity to coach two players like that?
Well, it's obviously an exciting opportunity. I've worked with Connor before at the World Cup with Todd McClellan a couple of years ago. Just a phenomenal young player. And Draisaitl played in Prince Albert a long time ago, my hometown, so I know a little bit about him. Don't know him personally, but the hardest thing to find in the NHL is those top players. If you're a team out there looking, and I know in Arizona we were looking for those top players all the time, but it's hard to find. And when you have a team that has a couple of them as kind of the backbone of the team, it certainly is enticing.
Now, they've made it very clear that their goal is to make the playoffs. The Oilers are looking to make the playoffs for the first time since 2017. You have 553 games of coaching experience. Dave, how do you get there?
Well, I believe you should try to make the playoffs every year, because it's what has happened in the league now. If you get in the playoffs, you should have a chance to win the Cup. And all of us, we can all say, okay, we want to win the Stanley Cup, but there's a process to get in there. And the first step of the process, you have to earn the right to be a playoff team. And that's what we're going to try to accomplish here. I think there's enough in this room, and I think, Ken's vision of the roster moving forward in the summer, I think there's enough to really work hard to be a playoff team next year, and that'll be our goal.
And how do you manage those expectations of trying to make those playoffs and trying to just maybe stay tunnel vision?
Well, I don't know if it's, I think every team's goal is to make the playoffs next year. So every team has expectations like that. We're no different than anybody else. So you come in and you prepare. You, like I say, I always talk about you earn the right to be a playoff team. And to earn that, you have to play well consistently through the regular season. And when you play well as a group, it's amazing the good things that can happen.
Dave, I appreciate your time. And thank you for joining us.
Thanks very much. Great
Dave
to be
Tippett
here.
is the 16th head coach in Edmonton Oilers history. Be sure to keep it locked in on EdmontonOilers.com for some draft combine coverage coming up this weekend. And that concludes today's press conference.